Picture this. It's a perfect spring day. You and your crew are soaking up the sun, live music in the background, craft beer in your hand, wandering past rows of breweries, local vendors, and food trucks serving up some serious flavor. That's Wild West Brewfest, and it's happening April 11th and 12th in Pflugerville. It's the ultimate craft beer festival run by the Rotary Club of Pflugerville, and every pour gives back, with net profits going to scholarships and local charities. So, tickets are going fast. Grab yours now at wildwestbrewfestpflugerville.com. There are almost 300,000 immigrants in Austin, and these days, many of them are filled with fear of deportation. Our guest today on CityCast Austin says deportations are not rising here, but folks should still be prepared. So, we're talking immigration myths, missing middle housing, and where to find the best barbacoa in Austin with Councilmember Jose Chito Vela. It's Monday, April 7th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here today with Jose Chito Vela, Austin City Council member for District 4. Hello, Councilmember Vela. How are you? Thank you for being here.
Doing great, Nikki. Pleasure to be here talking with you and y'all's listeners.
So I'm going to dive right in. The thing I want to know is, how is the immigrant community doing in Austin right now?
Ooh,
it's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy. In reality, like in kind of putting the world aside for a second, the immigrant community is doing decently well. There's good jobs in Austin. There's a strong community in Austin. I mean, the reason that there's so many immigrants here, Austin's a good city. You know, people get good jobs here. There's a good education. There's good cultural opportunities. There's good all kinds of things like that. So, in many ways, they're doing great. Trump and the kind of anxiety and stress that's surrounding everything has really put people into a kind of a bit of a crisis mode. I think we're coming out of that crisis mode right now. There was just a tremendous amount of fear when Trump first came into office, and the mass deportations and the threat of mass deportations. I mean, people were really panicking. We're a couple of months into it, and we have not seen the level of arrest and detention that maybe our worst fears would have conveyed. But, I will say they're very conscious right now of the situation, and I think they're very in preparation mode right now, where people are wanting to get legal advice, are wanting to understand the situation, what's going to happen to my kids if something happens to me, if I'm arrested or deported, what's going to happen to this, what's going to happen to that. And again, props to Austin. People really step up and provide that help and support here. I've been deeply connected to the immigrant community for a long, long time. Bastrop, for example. I mean, I've been represented so many people in Bastrop County, mostly because Bastrop law enforcement is so anti-immigrant and so hostile to immigrants in that county. There's nothing for folks over there. Like, there's no real support. I mean, there are some really good churches and individuals that are working hard, but you do not have that level of kind of institutional support and resources that are available. The legal advocacy, the Know Your Rights trainings, the food banks. Austin, as Austin does, has really, I think, risen up and tried to strongly support our immigrant community. And I think they hear that. I think they see that. And I think they appreciate it. But they're stressed. They're stressed and they're worried and they're wondering, what's next.
Rightfully so. So for anyone listening that maybe doesn't know, Chito is also an immigration lawyer. And so, as we're talking about this stuff with President Trump, and just like the general legal landscape for immigrants everywhere has been really uncertain and scary, to your point. And so I know that you are out in the community a lot. You're having town halls. What kind of information are you sharing in your town halls? What advice are you giving people? What kind of conversations are you having?
So the first thing that I'm trying to give is facts, because there's so much lies and panic and whatnot on social media, and even beyond social media, even into the news. Some of that kind of misinformation makes it into the news, and so I'm just trying to set the record straight, because those first few weeks when Trump got into office, people saw Travis County Sheriff's vehicle pulling somebody over, and they were like, "It's immigration, it's immigration!" Like, I mean, people were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in a
yeah.
state of panic where every time they saw some flashing lights and a law enforcement, they thought it was an immigration raid. And so it just kind of became this bubble of panic on social media. And we've been in very close communication with the Mexican consulate, and the Mexican consulate has been sharing their detention numbers. And obviously there's a lot more than just Mexican immigrants in Austin, but there's a lot of Mexican immigrants in Austin. And so they're a good proxy for kind of what's going on out there. And the reality is that their detention numbers, they are seeing a average number of detentions of their nationals, of Mexican nationals. When I talk to folks that actually know what's happening on the ground, the reality is that we're seeing a very average number of detentions. We're not seeing immigration really go after, honestly, the undocumented, like the folks that they got no work permit, they got no permission, no one knows they're in the country, no one knows anything about them. Right now, the government's not really kind of targeting that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the other thing we're seeing is we're not seeing raids, right? And what I would call a raid is like they go to, for example, like the flea market and just start stopping people at random, and questioning them and arresting them and whatnot. We have not seen that. The people that I'm most worried about right now are your green card holders, the people that have work permits, the people that the government knows where you are and where you live. And if they somehow connect you to something that they don't like, whether it be, supposed gang activity or Palestinian protests or whatever the case may be, they may decide to go and mess with you. So that to me is the number one danger right now. If you're an immigrant that's in the system, you've got to be careful.
You're already on the radar.
That's right.
That is terrifying. I'm really curious. You brought something up earlier that I think is really important to go back to, and that is the panic. And I think that Austin is one of those places, good or bad, we like to protect people. And so we sometimes, as people that don't feel like we are in danger, we are hypervigilant. And I think that hypervigilance is great, but I think also that hypervigilance can contribute to the panic. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm online and I'm like, I see I'm on the corner of so-and-so and so-and-so, and they're doing raids and I'm on the corner. It's like contributing to this already really, really tumultuous time. And so what kind of advice do you have for just your average everyday Austinite that just is like, I want to help?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I've been getting that question a lot.
Okay.
I was at a Indivisible Austin event, just a kind of town hall. And that was one of the main questions was, what can I do to help? They are privileged. They have wealth, they have education, they're healthy, they're happy. They want to help. They see the pain around them and they want to help. And they're like, what can I do? What can I do? The number one thing, and again, I know people kind of get tired of hearing this, but money rules the world.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
You have it. You should give it.
That's right. I mean, legal services aren't free. Attorneys got to eat and they got to pay their student loans and they got to do all that kind of stuff like that. So I'd say number one would be support your local immigrant legal service providers. And the one that is always at the top of the list is American Gateways. The American Gateways they started out in, I believe, the 80s as the Political Asylum Project of Austin. HAPA, and eventually had changed their name to American Gateways. It's a large organization that has been providing legal services to detained immigrants. They do, just kind of family visas. They do everything, asylum. They do everything. They're a great group, and they are probably also going to see some substantial funding cuts as they get a good chunk of money from the federal government, and that may be going away. So I would really urge, and my wife and I are going to do the same thing. We always give them money, but we're probably going to give them a little more this year to try to plug that hole that's going to come. Another organization that could use both donations, and I think they're in a better position to potentially get also in-kind donations and things like that, is called Casa Marianela. And Casa Marianela is an organization that is, they house immigrants, recently arrived immigrants who just came to Austin. Oftentimes, they just crossed the border. They just got to Austin. Wow. They have nowhere to go. Oh, and if you go to their facilities, I've been there, I've worked with them, I've represented their clients. There's folks from Myanmar, from Cameroon, from Guatemala,
I love that.
It is
everybody.
Phenomenal. You go, if you go and they'll have like these social events and stuff like that. Like I say, it's a wonderful organization. I cannot say enough about them, but you go to some of their socials that they have, you might hear like 6 different languages, 7 different languages. Phenomenal place.
I love that.
And those folks, a lot of their recently arrived immigrants, they need clothes, they need stuff, a lot. Yeah. And then they house them there as kind of refugees. And then but they're looking for apartments for them. And when they get an apartment, they need furniture, they need, forks and knives and stuff like that. So Casa Marianela is another one that's just an excellent organization. And then, the last thing that I would throw out there is that there's a lot of, especially in my district, District 4, a lot of elementary schools with very large immigrant populations, whether it's Afghan or Central American or Mexican or whatever the case may be. Go volunteer at those schools, man. And just simple things. Go read to the kids. And I know, people sometimes, you go and you try to volunteer and it's a little awkward and you're trying to figure it out. Stick with it. You will find that space where I go and I read to the kids every afternoon on Tuesdays at 3 or whatever the case may be. Those little extras, I think they're just such enrichment for the kids. They get to interact with folks that they might not normally interact with, that have points of views that they might not normally hear.
I see, these are tangible things. I'm so appreciative of that. I also want to go back because you said something again that is so important. It's not just people from Latin countries that make up our immigrant community. Right now, there's a microscope or a magnifying glass on certain people. But at the end of the day, to your point, we have immigrants from all over. And so, you say, Cameroon. I know that there's a bunch of Haitian immigrants in Austin too. I've met a lot of people that have moved here from Nigeria and building community. Are you having conversations with all of those types of communities too?
Absolutely. And even in my practice, because I started practicing full-time immigration criminal defense law around 2010, 2011. And my practice was heavily Mexican nationals. Started to see a good chunk of Central Americans also, but I remember I've gone to house parties with a bunch of folks from the Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast. I remember just getting connected. Someone hires you, and then they tell their brother about you, and then they tell so and so about you, and next thing you know, everybody from the Ivory Coast is calling Chito Vela. And which is a great thing, it's just such a compliment, really, that folks lean on you like that. But I've seen that also, and you have this really vibrant, diverse community of immigrants. If you go, for example, one of the elementary schools in my district has probably about 20% Afghan kids. I remember I went in and I was just like, who are all these little kids? And I was like, I'm not sure, where they're from, but they're definitely not from Latin America. I was just at the Islamic Center of Greater Austin there in District 4 on the corner of Manor and 51st Street. And we had iftar dinner. They invited me and
Yes.
Councilmember Kadri and Councilmember Lane, and we were all there celebrating iftar with them. And it was such a diverse community there. I mean, again, just Muslims from all over the world coming together here in East Austin. Just such a special night, and that's one of the beautiful things about Austin. I'm very positive on Austin. I know people get down and
We're
about
great.
how it's, yeah, and it's just this. It always used to be a good city. It always used to have interesting people, but the diversity and international flavor of Austin has exploded in the last, 10, 20 years or so. We're really becoming a global city that is pulling in people, whether it's via tech or whether it's via, immigrants from Cameroon that are, just struggling to get here, with the clothes on their back.
Yeah.
It's this new and diverse and interesting group of folks. It's just wonderful to see. And I'll tell you, the food here is just getting better and better.
It's getting better. It is getting better. I will give that to you. It is getting better. I love it. I love it. I love seeing all the diversity in food. Hey y'all, Nikki here. I wanted to tell you about something that you need to save the date for. Austin Community Foundation has been a trusted partner in local philanthropy for individuals, families, and businesses looking to do good in Central Texas. And on April 29th, Austin Community Foundation invites you to Austin in Common at ACL Live Moody Theater. Now, this is an event like no other. It's focused on storytelling. emceed by Miles Blockson, the night will feature 4 community leaders who will share their Austin stories, their diverse experiences of living, working, and raising families right here in Austin. It's a chance to celebrate our togetherness because no matter who you are or where you're from, we all have Austin in common. Sponsorships and tickets are available at austinincommon.org. So get yours today. That's austinincommon.org. There's a new show coming to the Zach Theater, and it sounds incredible. Y'all have to go check out Bob and Jean, A Love Story, written by Robert Schenken, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. So when Bob is deployed overseas and Jean tours with the USO, distance tests their devotion like never before. It's a wartime romance that captures the rush, thrill, and doubt of falling and staying in love. And y'all, this is a true story drawn from Schenken's own parents' letters. And it reminds us that even in the hardest times, love endures. So check out Bob and Jean on stage through April 19th. You can get your tickets at zachtheater.org. That's ZACH theater.org. Let's talk about housing and housing affordability. We're noticing this influx of people. We're noticing people coming in. How and when did you realize that it was like a major problem in Austin?
Yeah. It's been a real journey for me, just understanding housing and learning about it and whatnot. I had a very kind of typical experience. I got here when I was 18. I lived in duplexes. I lived in a home that had been cut up into 6 little units. I lived at the New Guild Co-op and at the 21st Street Co-op. Man, if there was cheap housing, I was gonna find that cheap housing. And
that sounds very familiar.
Yeah, I know, right? And that was always really a safety valve, though. There was cheap housing, and there was expensive housing too. But you could always find like a little kind of rundown little spot that was reasonably priced. And we've seen that kind of start to diminish and to go away as the growth has come. And that's kind of been my focus here on council is that we have to build the cheap housing of tomorrow. Basically, I mean, no one builds cheap housing. They build a new house, and it gets old, and then
it
it gets
becomes
cheap.
cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. I think about East Riverside. At one point,
Oh
the
my
apartments on East Riverside in the 70s, when those were built, they had tennis courts and swimming pools.
And then by the time I came along, I was like, "Oh, this is the best place in the city to live if you have no money."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, with a lot of the reforms that we've passed, the home ordinance, just making the site plan light stuff. Everything that we've been doing is to try to allow the construction of kind of reasonably sized, small scale housing. The problem in Austin hasn't been the 200 or 300 unit apartment complex, with all the kind of, amenities and the blah, blah, blah. Like that those are getting built.
Right.
The problem to me has really been that small apartment complex with zero amenities, the little duplex or the triplex or the fourplex, like that. We used to be really good at building that stuff, and somewhere along the way, we stopped building it. I grew up in Laredo, where very common for somebody to build a house behind their house, maybe two houses behind their house, and rent those out. Whether that was to family, I'm going to have my brother come and stay with me, or my mom come and stay with me, or whether it was just to rent that house out just to get by and to survive. I mean, that was a way of life. And in talking to all the old school East Austin folks, that's what people did for generations. You use what you got. If you got a piece of property, you've got to use it. Use it. Like put a little house back. So I think we're trying to kind of get back to the old ways in that sense. We're trying to give people a little more flexibility to, and then hopefully, I know that there's honestly not a bunch of folks left in especially Central East Austin that are still kind of generationally own their houses and have been there for a long time. But we want to give people the kind of power back to kind of use their property. And I mean, that's how people build wealth. I mean, in the United States, that's how people build wealth.
It should be that way. It's your property. You should be able to do with it within reason.
Within reason.
Within reason. Now, I'm curious because lately we've seen rents go down in Austin. In January, they've been dropping consistently for like 19 months. And so it seems like the rental market has gotten a little bit more affordable for folks, but like, I don't know. I don't trust it. What do you think is going on behind that? And honestly, like, that's great. Renting is great. I rent and it works for me and it works for who I am. But that doesn't say anything about people that maybe want to own something.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on with the lowering rents?
Yeah, it's good. Now, I mean, let's just start off with saying that. And, this is money that my working class constituents, instead of, paying, let's say, $1,300 in rent, now they got down to $1,150 or $1,100 or whatever the case may be. And, that's $150, $200 that they can put to healthcare or to education or to, taking a vacation, or they can save it. There's parts of D4 now. Again, these are going to be some of your dumpiest apartments in Austin, but that are scratching the, sub $1,000 one bedroom, which that's great. I mean, we've got to give people some rent relief, but then that's kind of gets to the heart of this whole housing conversation about, does housing supply matter? For many, many years, there was this idea that if we just keep the fancy condo, the fancy new home out of the neighborhood, that will keep prices reasonable. And I mean, San Francisco tried that. California, broadly speaking, has tried that. Multiple other cities, I think about Boston. We tried that for a few decades, honestly. Multiple cities tried that for a few decades. Austin had some of the strictest housing rules in Texas, and it didn't work. I mean, just the reality is that the apartments, the rent skyrocketed, the price of
Yep.
single family homes skyrocketed. And then we have over the last, let's say, 6 years or so, kind of made that switch to say that, you know what, we need to build our way out of this housing shortage. And the reality is that it looks like that was the answer. And it's not all the answer. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, there's always going to be folks, whether, because of health or disabilities or
Right.
whatever the case may be, that the market is never going to be able to provide something that they can afford. And we've got to help them. It's absolutely clear that just building enough market housing is a huge help to housing affordability. I think the data is pretty crystal clear on that point nowadays, after these last kind of 25, 30 years of this natural experiment around the United States. And we've got to, continue to move in that direction. And actually, I've got a big item that's coming up on the agenda.
I want to hear it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting some inside information.
So we are about to allow, got a vote, got to get my colleagues on board, single stair apartment buildings. These are your 4-story, 5-story walk-up apartments, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, they'll probably have an elevator just because for many, many reasons. But this is a simple little kind of, small apartment complex. It's not going to be any taller than 5 stories, limited to 4 apartments per story. And the good thing is when you do that, you get like each apartment is a corner apartment, so they have windows on both sides, so you get better light.
I love
you get
this.
ventilation.
I love this.
Yeah. And they're a smaller footprint, so they require less land, and you can stick them. Like you might take like where there was a corner store, that lot might be just big enough to put a little apartment building. And the idea being that this would be some of the cheapest multifamily housing that you can buy on just like as far as the amount of land that you need and the amount of materials and the cost of the materials and all that kind of stuff like that. And these would be good to condo out, basically, where, you can rent them, but you can also do your first time home buyers, man. This is the kind of stuff that, your teacher, your firefighter, like this is zero amenities. There's no gym. There's no pool. You know what I mean? There's just a house. And the other thing is that hopefully that we can put these more in central Austin, along our transit corridors, where our parks and our amenities and all that kind of stuff like that. So we're trying to find ways to kind of bring affordable housing, as affordable as possible, back into central Austin. And it's part of a movement. There's been a lot of Honolulu, Knoxville, lots of other cities have been legalizing them. Seattle has allowed these for decades. That New York, this is a standard kind of apartment building in New York, basically. And we're bringing it to Austin, and really excited about it.
One of the first places that I lived out of college was just that. I want to say it was just 4 units, maybe 5 or 6 units. And we all knew each other and we all took care of each other. And we were all this little like community, and we each had our own condo. We each had our own stuff. But like the first story ones had these little yardlets. It wasn't a big yard. It was a tiny yard. And I loved it. And it was affordable. And it felt good to have that little community. So this is exciting. This is exciting, I think, for anybody that's, especially first time home buyers. That sounds really exciting.
We're on a roll with the housing right now, and people are really looking at what the hell is Austin doing over there, and the rents are falling. People are noticing. Let's go.
Okay, so now in District 4, what are some of your favorite spots to go to?
Oh man, that's just
I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I know,
right? So many. I'm gonna have to pick both in the district, and I always like, some of them are like, well, technically that's across the street from the district. I'm like, count it. They're close enough to District 4.
I do that too.
So one of them, I would have to say, I think the best barbacoa tacos in Austin are at this little food truck on the corner of 51st and Airport called La Canaria. And so the Canary. And of course, it's painted yellow. There's a little corner store there, and the food truck is just kind of right next to the corner store. They make their homemade corn tortillas, and they have the best barbacoa in Austin. And I say this as someone from Laredo who's been eating barbacoa my whole life.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever heard of this place.
Oh God, it's a tiny little spot, but it's absolutely wonderful. They also have lengua, which is the tongue, made in a very similar way to the barbacoa, which is delicious. If it's like a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, I'm probably going to La Canaria to pick up some tacos de barbacoa, and then I'm probably going over to Kick Butt Coffee to go get their coffee there on Airport.
I mean, yeah, Kick Butt. Yeah, Kick Butt is great.
Kick Butt is great. It's such a eclectic place.
They do everything there. They do everything. They have shows. They do everything there.
And there's always a bunch of weirdos there, man.
Yes,
in the best way. You know what I mean? Like
Kick Butt is one of those few last old Austin places where you go in and there's flyers of everything that's happening in the city pasted everywhere. Or there'll be some weird show, or there'll be a burlesque show, or there'll be a comedy show. You never know what's going on. I love Kick Butt. I love
those like metal and punk bands, and and it just like, oh my God.
Yes, I love
but their
it.
coffee, all their coffee is excellent, but he does this, it's called a café de olla, which is coffee with kind of a cinnamon and piloncillo. It's a kind of a Mexico City, Mexican style sweet coffee
that sounds good.
Is oh God. And it's hard to find. And whenever I find it, I'm just like, I go there every day. And they just have it during the winter because it is really kind of a winter thing. Let's see what I got to throw a shout out to the Nomad on Cameron and Corona.
Come on, Nomad. Yes.
Yeah, no. Miguel has been just great. I mean, that place, I think they've been there for 20 years now, or just about 20 years.
They're just one of our best kept secrets. I've been wanting to tell people about Nomad, and then I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I don't want, no.
Yeah, the patio back there, just grab a beer and relax on the patio. They have shows and fun stuff, and it's just always a good time at Nomad. It's so funny too because so my kids go to the elementary school. That's my neighborhood, Windsor Park, right there, and my kids go to Blanchard Elementary. And if you go there to Nomad on like a Friday at like 5:00, like all the teachers from Blanchard Elementary are having drinks there.
They're like, okay, the week is over.
Yeah, they're all commiserating with each other, being like, oh man, those kids.
I love that. Finally, we're away from them. Oh my God. Councilmember Vela, Chito, thank you so much. I have been wanting to get you on this podcast and talk to you. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh my God. My pleasure. My pleasure, Nikki. And, and great to see you. Great to talk to you, and look forward to coming on again whenever you want me. I'll be here.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Councilmember Vela's website in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.